Welcome to my channel. This is Hot Mess and Hot Glue. My name's Lynn. Let's have some fun. Today we are taking part in Christi Creates does a monthly challenge where we're kind of challenged to take something a little bit more on the expensive side and turn it into our own creations using as little out-of-pocket expense as possible. What's really fun about this, we call it the CHIC for cheap, and she does this every Tuesday of every month. Sorry, it's every first Tuesday of every month. I will make sure to have her link in the bottom of my video at the description box. So, getting started on this, I just did a quick little measurement to kind of give you an idea of the scale of the project. What I have here is it's like a 3-piece canvas decorative set that I got from Target years and years ago. And the color scheme just doesn't really match my interior design anymore. And so I took the 3 of them and I just kind of set them aside. And I'm only going to use the one of the 3 today. And I'm just flipping the canvas over. I'm going to remove the printed canvas itself because I want to kind of do a reverse canvas on it. The inspiration piece has, I believe it's like a blank background, but I really didn't want to leave it blank. I wanted to have some kind of color just to kind of spruce up my interior home decor. So to fill in all of the the nails and the staples and things like that, you could use a couple of different things. I used this stainable wood filler, but Dollar Tree also has a spackle that works just as well. So if you have that, whichever you prefer or whatever you have on hand, I'm sure will be just fine. So once you get those covered, let it dry, give it a really good sanding to make sure there's no added grit or anything like that. I'm just gonna take and flip this canvas around. It's funny because in the end, I'm not even I think I did a couple steps completely extra. I don't know. I just kind of make it up as I go. So there's probably a handful of ways I could have done this that would have been easier and less time consuming. But in my thought process, this all made sense. So I'm reattaching it, but to the opposite side of the canvas. So once I get that completely attached, then I kind of realize, there's still a little piece in the middle here that I need to get rid of. And so that little wood bar there, I eventually realize I need to get rid of, and I take that apart. Again, today's challenge is part of Christi Creates channel. She does the CHIC for cheap. Please go check her out, you guys. She just posted the most fun video of her craft room makeover. I swear, the inspiration is insane. It makes me just want to go and completely redo my space. So I'm showing you just how rough the frame of this canvas is, and it's just not going to be good enough for me to sand inside. And so I was going to take it outside, and then I remembered I have no sandpaper, and last couple times I've gone to Home Depot, they haven't had it for my electric sander. So I'm just going to take some paint sticks that I have from Home Depot also, and these ones are the larger 21 or 24 inch ones, and so you get 3 in a pack for $1. And so I picked up, I want to say like 5 or 6 packs just to have them on hand, but in total I used about 2.5 packs for this project. If you remember in the inspiration piece, there was kind of this carved out wood embellishment on the top and the bottom. And my piece here is not quite large enough to do both. So I'm choosing just to do one on the top. And to create that support and background for that, I'm just taking a small little 5.5 by 7.5 stretched canvas from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use both the Gorilla wood glue along with the Gorilla hot glue wood glue. And so that's gonna help me get the amount of stickiness. No, that's just gonna help me adhere it. Oh goodness, oh goodness. What I'm doing now is I'm taking just some decorative pieces that I got from the thrift store. It's just this random little Home Depot. It's like a kid's kit, you put stuff together. I have no idea what this was supposed to make. They were giving them away for free at the thrift store. And so I picked up a few packs and then I donated $1 per pack. So here I've measured out and I've kind of mapped out where exactly I want this to fit in respect to where the overhang on the frame that I'm adding to the canvas board is going to be. I'm adding, the painter sticks to the actual, like the frame of the canvas. Does that make sense? Oh my gosh, I'm making this so much more difficult than it needs to be. Anyway, so because it's white and I want it to have a wood coloring, I'm just doing one coat white. And then I realized, now that I've removed that middle portion that was support, I need to replace that support. And so I'm using just these jumbo popsicle sticks from Walmart. I glue them together and then I glue them to the back, and then I use my staple gun and staple them down. So while the white paint is drying, what I'm doing is I'm taking these dollar store wreath forms, and these are the 3D ones that you can make almost like orbed like wreaths and stuff with. They're super cool, and you get 3 or 4 different round rings in a set. And so I'm just taking them apart. I'm taking apart their little connector pieces, and basically what I'm doing is I'm stretching and folding, and I'm trying to get them to fit inside the frame. And again, in the inspiration piece, there was the carved cutout on the top. There were 4 of these round embellishments, and then there was the carved cutout on the bottom. Now the size of my project, it just doesn't compare to the size of that one. So I'm gonna do 3 of the circular embellishments. So basically, as you see here, I'm kind of stretching, pulling, kind of trying to get an idea of where I want that. Now on these, there's just these tiny little clips, like I said, that hold these together. They come off pretty easily. So just using some pliers, I just kind of bend them back and forth, and then they're good. Now, once I've got these rings the size that I want to fit inside that frame, I'm just taking some black electrical tape, and I really like using this because, for one, it's going to paint over really well, and it's going to give the tape more of like a soldered look, and it's not going to look as much like tape. So it's almost like you're taking metal, welding them together, and creating this one solid piece. And so being able to stretch the tape also really helps me get around so that I'm able to attach the singular circles together. And as you see here, I'm also going through and I'm adding the additional embellishments to this as well. And so these need to be taped together, and it worked out so well. It worked out way better than I actually had thought it would. I would say the trickiest part was really just trying to fit together the little pieces of metal, and that really wasn't even that tricky. It was a little time consuming, but for me, I find this stuff so therapeutic. I know I've mentioned it 100 times, but for me to sit down and do a craft, it's 100% self-care. And it's how I escape. It's how I deal with my anxiety. It's how I deal even with my ADHD. I'll get more into that at the end of the video. Now that I have the shape mostly started, again, I'm just taking additional rings. I used a total of 2 of the 3D wreath form sets to have enough wooden circles and half circles and quarter circles to create the metal embellishments on here. You'll see I kind of use like a little bit of hot glue to kind of tack it in place, and then while that's setting, I will go back in with more of the black electrical tape and just kind of cut really thin strips, stretch it around, and just try to keep the detail of the connections with the tape as minimal as possible. Again, in the end, it actually turns out really good because it just looks like they were welded together. It's really neat. The original inspiration piece for this was from Kirkland's, and it was going for $100. Now, I took some liberties. I did have to scale down because I didn't have anything on hand that was that size. However, using mostly materials that I had on hand as far as the frame, if I were to break down all of the dollar store products and all of that, it was 2 packs. In the end, it ended up only costing me, I want to say, $5 if I had to go out and buy everything just for this project, but because I had most of it on hand. Now, I had mentioned that in the inspiration piece, there was this wood embellishment cut out. So what I'm doing is, now that the white is completely dry, I'm going in with a thin layer of Waverly's Antiquing Wax. And if I paint it on in a single direction, so you swipe it left to right, swipe it up and down, then wipe a little bit off, and then even taking a really coarse dry brush and going over that, it creates a slight wood grain effect. And so once that was all done and dry, then it was time to double check, make sure I've got the exterior pieces are cut, they're in the right position, and just making sure that all the measurements are fine. If there's any measurements that are off, now is a great time to mark those. Since they were good, I just went ahead, gave them another quick layer of stain. I'm using the Waverly wax again as a stain because it does dry much quicker. I'm doing a light coat, kind of wiping off the excess, and then we let them dry. So while those are drying, I had mentioned before that I wanted just a background color. So this background color is from Hello Hobby. It's the chalk paint that Walmart has used to replace the Waverly chalk paint at my Walmart. This specific color is mauve, and it just was really pretty, and it's subtle, and it's just enough to add a little color dimension to this, and it matches some of the newer decor that I'm putting up around the house. Now I've got the frame of this completely dry, and I'm attaching it with both Gorilla wood glue and some Gorilla hot glue in the wood glue. So 2 different kinds of wood glue are going on there. The reason being is I want that, you know, immediate short-term, long-term hold. So using some clamps that I found at IKEA that are amazing. I'm definitely going to pick some more of those up the next time I'm there. It was like $1 for both of them, but they're huge. Anyway, so for the wood glue, I just kind of squirt on a little bit, and then I don't want there to be too much excess oozing out. So using a paintbrush, I just use that to kind of give it an even coat. Then I go in, and at the 2 ends in the middle, and then some squiggly lines, I just use the hot glue. So I took this metal piece outside and I gave it 2 coats of Rust-Oleum's Ultra Matte Black Spray Paint. This way it just had one uniform color, and that's where it also helped hide the kind of the texture and the material difference between the metal itself and that electrical tape that I used to connect the 2 of these. So I'm going through and I'm just using some hot glue and I'm tacking it down just a little bit. I go back through and I tack it down a little bit more permanently, but this is how it looked in the end. And I could not be more pleased with this. What I like about this is that embellishment there on the top. I have complete freedom to then even add a small wreath if I wanted to, a small sign. And so being able to switch this piece out year round is going to be really fun. And that to me is where the real savings comes in. I want to use things multiple times. And that's, again, where I feel I see the most savings. Now on to my next project. This one was really fun. A very, very close friend of mine who lives in California. I've known her for so long. She sent me this picture of these hanging jars. And she says, you know what? I saw these for sale. They were $150. I can't imagine paying that amount for these. Is there something you can do? I said, absolutely. I actually have everything on hand. So using this board that I got from a neighbor for free, she was just kind of redoing her decorations, and I basically was trash picking and said, hey, I could use that. So I'm completely taking this apart. There's 4 boards, but really 2 of them are completely stuck together, and then the other 2 have kind of like a slit in the middle. So on the back portion, I'm going to secure this with some painter's tape. Then I flip it over and just use some wood glue, and I wipe up any excess. While that's drying, I'm going to go to just kind of creating an overall color. So I start by defining the crease in each of these pieces of wood, so visually they look more similar. Now this bottom coat that I'm using, it's another Hello Hobby. It's in the color Wild Mushroom, and that was the original base color. Now to give it a faux wood grain look, because this is just MDF, what I did was I layered on I used, oh my goodness, a bunch of stuff. So I used Apple Barrel's Territorial Beige for the lighter portion and some khaki. I did a little bit of burnt umber, but then I also went through with the antiquing wax from Waverly just to add a little bit more dimension. I will say I am personally pretty proud of the way that this turned out. 9 times out of 10, I would be the person to go ahead and just use wood grain contact paper. However, I really wanted to just kind of go the extra step, really challenge myself, because I just adore my friend and she deserves for me to take that extra step. So that's what I was able to do. Once all of this is dry, basically I'm going through, I'm finding the middle, I'm finding where I want to hang these hooks. Now these hooks, they were $1, but I didn't get them at the Dollar Tree. I actually got them at Dollar General. So once I mapped that out, I asked my husband to please help me. And so he gave me a quick little tutorial on how to drill pilot holes so that we don't split the wood. And then he went ahead and attached these hooks for me. While he was doing that, I'm painting 2 jars. These are just wide mouth mason jars that I got in a 12-pack, and it ended up costing me less than $11. So they were less than $1 each. Once those were attached and the jars were pretty much dry, I wanted to recreate that detail it had at the top of the jar. Now I asked her if she was going to be using this for greenery or for a candle, and she said she preferred to use greenery, but she was going to use fresh flowers. She has an amazing garden. So to again mimic the look of the inspiration jars, I've just going through and I'm taking my little finger sander and I'm just removing the tippy portion to bring out the detail in the mason jar itself. The inspiration piece used white jars, but she specifically asked for this color, and this color is so pretty. It's Waverly's chalk paint, and it's in the color Lagoon. It is so vibrant and so pretty. I did do 2 coats of it because I just kind of wanted to make sure that it was stable. Once it was dry, I did go in and I spray painted it with Mod Podge matte finishing spray. So instead of brushing it on, I just sprayed it on. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating this little like hook system for these to hang on. And just to make sure that it's a little bit more secure, I did this under the, what is this called? The webbing, whatever, I can't remember what it's called, but I'm going to use this all-purpose cement glue that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to put it on the inside of the lid so that when I screw the lid down to the top of this jar, it's going to seal in the rope that we're using for our main support to hang this. So it just felt like it was adding an extra layer of security to this. For the visual detail, I just added a little bit more of the jute cord. This jute cord I specifically got at the Dollar Tree also. I had this kind of wired plain, I want to say maybe it's a burlap. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but this is just a leftover remnant that I had from Christmas time. And then up in the top of the screen, you can see there's a thicker burlap ribbon with some lace trim. And what I did was I just went in and I removed the lace trim only, and that's what I'm placing on the top. And I'll do that on 2 separate layers. Again, after referring to my friend to ask her what she preferred, this was the aesthetic she was looking for. Now I'm going to just do my best to make sure that these are going to hang at the same level. So matching the first jar that I took care of, I'm just measuring the height of the jute cord that we're using. I'm going to tie this off, and then for an added visual bonus, the sides of these strings, you can kind of see they're like 2 loops together on both sides. All I did was I took a spare strand of this jute cord and I wrapped it around both of those so that there's not such an obvious change and difference in between the 2 kind of cords. So here you're going to see what I mean by that. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you watch what I'm doing, you'll kind of get a better idea. I really was pleased with how this turned out. I was really glad that I just kind of took the time to think of a different way to disguise that. Didn't take much time. It was just a smidge of hot glue on the top and then a smidge of hot glue on the bottom, and that was it. It's just a matter of wrapping it around and getting to the tightness of the jute cord that you prefer. Now, I know I mentioned before, I use crafting a lot to kind of help with my ADHD, and I've been doing a lot of research and just trying to really focus on my own mental health. Again, at the end of the video, I do have many resources, and in my description box, if you yourself are suffering from ADHD, as an adult, it is so difficult. As an adult female, it's even more difficult. It is completely different than if a child has the same diagnosis. So I will go over some information in my description box. I will be more than happy to share with you some of my daily routines, some of the things I'm working on, and even some of the supplements that I've done some research on to help me with that, because it is so hard sometimes to get even the most basic of jobs done. The crafting aspect of what I get to do, I have no problem getting that done. This is pure joy. But if it is not interesting, if it's not challenging, if it is not urgent, I'm just not going to do it. And that really is where, laundry and all of that stuff, fun stuff kind of falls into place. So to help manage just being a decent human being and a wife and a mother, there's some all natural things that I'm just trying that I'm more than happy to share with you guys down in my description box. Again, just some final finishing touches with this jute cord. I really like the look of taking a lighter to the jute cord and just kind of like singeing the excess little fringe that's on it. It gives it a darker appearance, but then it also kind of tidies up all those loose ends, and it will, at the same time, it kind of burns off and helps reduce any kind of like hot glue webbing that you can sometimes get. Now, I use mixture. I typically use Surebonder's hot glue, and I will say between Surebonder and the Gorilla hot glue, I just don't get very much webbing. Here it is, the final product. I did just put some fake flowers in there. I didn't have anything real, but these came out really good. I tried to stagger them on my wall, and I think they just came out really good. That's it for today's video. You guys, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. If you liked this video, please be so kind as to give it a big thumbs up. And if you really like my content, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. Also, don't forget, I'll be doing a giveaway at every 500 subscriber mark. So the emoji for this video today will be a $, since we saved so many dollars by replicating these amazing originals. Again, you guys, please know heart support's there if you or a loved one needs it. Until next time, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.